Hello, welcome to another video in the NetWorker training series. In today's video, we are going to take a look at NetWorker protection groups. If you are familiar with NetWorker prior to NetWorker 9, you would be familiar with the NetWorker resource called Group. NetWorker Group helped us apply backup lifecycle and configuration setting to a set of clients or datasets that way to be protected. This setting included selecting a set of clients, setting retention and browse period, setting pool configurations, schedule, backup start time, and so on. With NetWorker 9, the architecture of NetWorker has changed and the configuration that was earlier on group is now divided among protection group, workflow, and action. The new architecture consists of policy, which is the base container and wherein the global properties can be applied, which is mainly the name and the notification property or setting. The policy would can contain a number of workflows, and a workflow is defined when the backup should be run. The workflow in turn will contain one protection group and a number of actions. The relationship between a workflow and a protection group is one-to-one, meaning that one workflow can have only one protection group, or one protection group can be applied to only one workflow. The protection group itself would contain the dataset that is to be protected or the source data, and the workflow in turn would have multiple actions that define what needs to be done or what action has to be taken on the set of clients that is defined by the protection group. In today's video, we will be looking at the protection group. So protection groups defines a set of data sources to protect, such as client, VMware objects, or save sets. As mentioned in the definition, a protection group is used to group together assets that you want to backup. Depending on the assets or the data that you want to protect, we have four main type of groups, of which two have a static and dynamic subtype, but all are listed here in the list here. The first type is client. To select this option when the group will contain a static list of client resource to backup or clone. When you select this option, the client selection displays a list of configured clients on the NetWorker server. Use the checkbox to select or remove client resource from the group. Use this group to protect client file system, NDMP backups, NMDA backups, NMM backups, and block-based backups. Dynamic clients, you select this option to define a dynamic list of clients to backup or clone. When you select this option, the dynamic client selection appears. You can choose to add all of the existing client resources to the group or only the client resources that contain specific text in the tag attribute. Use this option to protect client file system backup, NDMP backup, NMDA backups, NMM, and block-based backups. The next type is VMware. So select this option to select VMware objects to be backed up. You have an option to make the selection dynamic using rules. There is already a video regarding this on the channel. If you have not checked the video, the link to the video is in the descriptions. Save set query, you can select this option to clone a specific list of save sets. When you select this option, the query selection displays a list of attributes that you can use to create a query that generates the list of save sets. Use this group type to clone save sets. So select this option to clone save set on an ongoing basis based on the defined save set criteria. When you select this option, the save set selection appears. You have to specify a list of save sets to clone in the format saveset/clone ID. Specify one save set on each line. Use this group to clone save sets. So if you have already seen the pattern, the first two are for normal file system or module based backup. The next next one is for VMware objects, and the next two is for clone groups. The last type is a NAS device, so you select this option to backup file system snapshots and NAS snapshots. You can clone data after a snapshot backup completes or do it concurrently. Alright, let's go ahead and see how to create each one of those group types. So the first one that we will try to create is the client. So let's go ahead to the protection section of the network NMC NetWorker administrator window. Then go to groups and then right click on the right pane, or you can right click on the group itself and select new. And by default, the option selected for you is always client. So as you had seen in the slides, when you select clients as the group type, you will be provided with the with all the clients that are configured on your NetWorker server. So there are a few parameters here. The name parameter, you can specify the name for the group. So the maximum number of characters for the names of the group is 64, and you can create a group, and once the group is created, this particular parameter is going to be read only. Comment is again anything that you want to write about the group. The workflow on policy selection, it provides a list of workflows that are not currently associated with any group. So as I told you, the group and the workflow is a one-to-one association. So if a workflow is already associated with the group, that workflow will not be listed here. But yes, if there is a workflow that is already created, you can select it here. So you can always select the workflow after you have selected the group, or vice versa. Anyone is okay. So, okay, so to select a particular, or let's go ahead and give this a name. Let's say demo client. And to do this, you'll have to select which client you want to add to this particular group. So let me go ahead and select my domain controller. That's the DC1 I have. And once you have done the selection, you can click OK. If you have a very large set of clients and it is hard for you to scroll through the list, you can go ahead and search for that client here. For example, I'm going to search for DC1. Let's go to this and so you see that it selects that particular client for you. So all right, let's go ahead and select this and say OK. So the client is selected. So whenever you're creating a group or you're creating a workflow and you're not associating that workflow with any of the uh, groups, or if a group is not associated with the workflow, there will be this, red exclamation indication on the group icon. So this would indicate that that particular set of defined data is not being protected right now. All right, so let's move on and let's try to create a dynamic client. A dynamic client is based on tags, and a tag is one of the resources in the client instance. So if you could see my screen right here, I have a column here called tags. If you want to do a dynamic assignment of clients to a particular protection group, you can assign a particular name to the tag and in turn give the name of the tag in the dynamic group so that that group can be associated with this client. So let me create a tag for you. Let's say NW, because this is the backup server, and say OK. Right? Nothing else to be selected. I'm going to create a new group again by going to groups, right click and new. So let's say NW server or assets, and I'm going to select dynamic client. So as soon as I select dynamic clients, the selection criteria on this screen is going to change. There you go. So here you have two options. One is to choose all the clients and the other is to choose the client with these tags. So when you select the option for choose all the clients, that means that whatever server is defined on your networker data zone here in the configuration will be added automatically to this group, meaning that every time you delete a client from your networker configuration or add a new client to the networker configuration, those clients are automatically added or removed from this group. The other option here which you would normally use is the tag, and here if I give the name of the tag that we wanted, this is going to dynamically select the client. So you can go ahead and click on OK. So So this is the dynamic client that we had, and if you see here, it has already picked up the client for the tag NW, which is the backup server. All right, so the next group that we are going to look at is the SaveSet query group. So now, before doing a SaveSet query, let me take you to my server and just run an info to see what data we have on the server. All right, so we have DC1 related information and NSR server. All right, great. So let's go ahead and create a group for SaveSet query. So as I have already mentioned, the SaveSet query and the SaveSet ID list, these groups are meant to be associated for clone and not backups. So whenever you do an association of a group to a workflow, the options and the selection on the group also changes based on the type of group that you select, which we are going to see when we are going to talk about the workflows. But right now, let me go ahead and create a new group for the SaveSet query. So let's say NW clone. What I'm going to do is, from the list of clients, I'm going to select only the backup that belongs to the backup server. Or let's see DC clone. Already seen NW, so let's see one clone. And again, if you look at the selection criteria, selection here, selection options, as I select SaveSet query, the option changes. So this is the query filters that we can use. The options on the identity will always remain the same. Only the second part is going to change depending on what query you're selecting. So there are a number of options here. So let's go through each one of them. All right. So the first parameter is include SaveSet from previous dash and dash, you can say. So this is generally to include or to define how long back or what is the backup data that we have to include for this query. So with the current setting, this would mean that I would be querying the data which is being backed up 1 hour ago, but this is generally not what we would do in production. So at least we would go 1 day or couple of days ago so that we do not miss out on any save sets that have failed the clone earlier. So when we say include save sets from the previous 3 days, that means that it is going to query the backups that have been done for the past 3 days and up to now or up to certain time ago. So let's just stick to up to now, because that would mean that the backups from last 3 days up to right now, or if you select this option and say like 1 day ago, that means that this query implies to backups that have been done 3 days, between 3 days and 1 day ago, that is yesterday. So 2 days in total. So let's just leave it to up to now. The next option is to filter the save set by level. So what this is going to do is this is going to select the save sets done in the last 3 days based on level, meaning when you click on full, that means that it is going to select all the full backups that were backed up in the last 3 days. If you select cumulative incremental, it will also select full and cumulative incremental done in the last 3 days, and so on and so forth. If you leave all this information, or if you do not select anything here, that means that it is going to select all the level. So limit the number of clones. This again means that how many copies are you considering for the save set to be done. So when we are querying for the backup from the last 3 days, if that particular save set already has a copy, a clone copy, that means that the number of copies is set to 2, then that particular save set is not considered. So consider save sets that have the copy parameter as 1, which means that there is only one copy of this save set and there is no clone yet. But if you do want to do multiple copies, then yes, go ahead and change this number. The next set of settings depends on what parameters you want to select for your query. So if you want to select a particular client to be added here, for example, in this group, we are intending to clone all the save sets that belong to DC1. So let's go ahead and select DC1. If you wanted to select the data that was backed up using a particular workflow, then you would select a particular workflow. And in case it's again FS Windows, because DC1 belongs to FS Windows, so it would be equivalent. Or if you have a set of clients that you wanted to do a clone for, then you could go ahead and select this. Here's the backup action, or the action that you wanted to apply. You have the protection group parameter, that is if you wanted to select a particular protection group. And then you have the pool, which is the volume pool, where you wanted to select the save set from. And if in case you wanted to select the save set based on name, for example, C drive or /etc or MSSQL : and so on, then you could go ahead and mention those names here. So I'm going to select that. So you could select multiple parameters or settings here to narrow down the selection that you wanted. For example, if you had multiple backups, client backups on FS1, and you wanted to do a clone of only the DC1 that was backed up in workflow 1, then you could do this and make more granular filtering. Let's go ahead and click OK here. And as you see, the DC1 clone is also selected. So this, as I told you, is going to show you the red exclamation mark, because it is not associated with any group right now. So the next group that we are going to look at is the save set ID list. This is a static group, meaning that the settings that we put into this particular group are not going to change automatically. Any change needs to be done manually. So this group can be used to maybe do a one-time clone, an ad hoc clone, or movement of maybe save sets from one volume to another by using the clone option, where you can delete the source once the clone is completed, which is equivalent to staging. Or you could also maybe use this in DR scenarios wherein you want to do or DR drills wherein you want to do a clone of a particular set of backups for that clone drill to a remote site. So either ways, the data that, or the save set ID that you provide here is going to be static. So in the settings, you will only find a text box wherein you can input the save set ID and clone ID for the save sets that you want to be cloned. So let's go ahead and add a few. Let's see, let's create query for this, and we'll get only the first is the SSID, then the clone ID. Oh, I'm sorry. So we have this, we can copy this directly into the window and copy it. Let's paste it here, and this should be in a format when there is a slash which divides the SSID and the clone ID. So this is how you mentioned the save sets to be assigned to this particular group. Click OK, and let's take a look at it. All right. So this is how you created a save set ID list. All right. So the next type of group that we are going to look at is the VMware type. So we have the vCenter, which is integrated or added to the NetWorker server. So the VMware group would select the vCenter. We can have just one vCenter objects in one group. So let's go ahead and see how we can create this group. For this, again, right click, select new, and then give it a name. Let's say location wise, let me just call it home. these are at home, and we're going to select the group type as VMware. And in VMware, you have these additional settings, that is backup optimization and dynamic association. Backup optimization is categorized as capacity and performance, meaning that if it is set to capacity, then it is going to optimize the snapshot process based on capacity, meaning that it is not going to use a lot of space. It is going to try and use as less space as possible. Whereas when you set it to performance, that means that it is going to have minimal impact to performance, but that would mean that it might be using more space than the capacity optimization type. The dynamic association is meant for the dynamic association of clients to a particular group. For example, when you're using rules that we have seen in our previous video, wherein you can assign a particular rule to have the VM automatically associated with this. And whenever you have dynamic association enabled, that would mean that whenever there are new VMs that are added with that tag on the vCenter, then those VMs are automatically added to this group during the start of the workflow. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's select our vCenter. We have just one vCenter. Now the type of selection that we are going to do in this particular option without the rules is going to be static, which means that the new VMs that are added to the vCenter will not be dynamically associated with this particular protection group. So you can go ahead and select whatever VM that you want to protect. For example, if I select these two and then click on OK, that is done. So I can go back and see this home, and it is all updated there. If you want to do the VMware object selection dynamic, then you would have to apply rules, which we have already seen in the previous video. So if you have missed that video, the link to that video is in the description below. So for that, you just have to select the vCenter, then select the a rule. So the rule configuration is in the same page, just down below the list there, if you can see my screen here. And then we can click on preview all virtual machines. If the virtual machine is up and running, then it will reply back and it is going to show you. But if in case the tag belongs to a VM which is switched off, it might not show up in the preview. But when you do start a backup, it is going to be added to the backup source automatically. So the tag that defined under the prod rule is assigned only to DC1, so that is what you see here. But if in case you go ahead and add any new VMs with the same tag, even those VMs will be added to the particular protection group. Alright, so this is all I had for protection group. So in the upcoming videos, we will be looking at how to create workflows and actions and how to associate each one of those with the protection groups. So stay tuned for that. I am delighted to introduce to you NetWorker Commands, the Android app that has been developed by Crazy Rove Studio. This app is a reference guide for NetWorker commands, so no more digging into the PDF document for the commands that you're looking for. Just launch the app on your mobile and search for whichever commands that you are looking for. On the landing page, you have a search option as well as all the commands from the command reference guide listed below it. You can either directly scroll for your command here or start typing the command or part of it in the search bar, and there you have it. Tap on the command to get to the man pages for the selected command. The details page is quite vivid with crisp font and smooth scrolling. To go back to the search page, hit the back button or the back icon on the top. You can also look at other content from Crazy Rove Studios on the menu. This app is currently available on Google Play Store and the iOS version is coming soon. I hope you find this useful. As always, you can reach out to me with suggestions through my Twitter page. Thank you all for your support. Thanks for sticking with me till the end of this video. I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions or comments, share it with our community in the comment section below, or you can drop me a message at my Twitter account. I will see you on another video. Goodbye.